Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we are going to take a trip up Lilliput Mountain. I haven't worked on this tree in several months. I mean, I think 3 or 4 months. I've just been letting it grow. It's been enjoying its summer. You can see it's done really well. It's growing quite well. It's got a nice shape to it. It's really filled in. I recently added some soil here, which I'm trying to smooth out. This tree is interesting. I think I'll put a link to the previous video where I talk a lot more about the pot, but I just love the pot. I mean, it's super interesting. Zoom in and take a look at it here. It's a pot by Brightside Bonsai. But you can see there's not a whole lot of room. I mean, you can see the roots there exposed, but the nice part about this pot is it's designed so the roots can kind of escape, which is why I have it in a tray. And you can see the tree in the top has already made its way down there. And so I try to keep the soil, kind of up against the side here to create a seal so the roots will go down there and not dry out. And it's worked pretty well. I'm probably going to come back to it. There's a hole in this front one, which you can see. This front tree is the smallest because it has the least access to soil. But yeah, I think the tree is coming along nicely. And let me show you what it looked like when we last pruned it. You can see here, I mean, it was a severe root pruning. In fact, it was sort of an emergency repot. Like I said, I'll put a link to the video. You can check it out. But I had initially put these trees in here and just, sort of garden soil that they came with. And that turned out to be a disastrous idea because eventually it got dried out and I mean it was just terrible. Check the video out. But essentially these trees I mean they were basically cuttings at the end of that repot. But you can see they have recovered now, and I think the long recovery time is probably explained by the fact that yeah, they basically had no roots. But again, check out that video; it's a good one. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of clean this up a little bit. You can see we've got some long growth. Probably want to deal with. I've got these wires in here, which I think we no longer need them. There's enough growth that I could take these out, so I'll just kind of snip those out. They were, holding the trees in place because, as I said, there were, I mean, basically no roots. Um, and let's see what else we got going on here. Just checking out the soil and seeing how firm it is. I've often thought of putting a little muck or something in here. That tree seems pretty stable. This one's pretty stable. So I think they do have some roots. Um, got something that looks like a crocosmia leaf, kind of blue in here. I love growing those near the bonsai bench because the hummingbirds come in and just absolutely, devour the nectar in those things. But let's bring this in and take a closer look. It has a nice shape. I think it's finally, it's filled in nicely now, and it's just like a nice jungle of green, and it's sort of hanging over the mountain. And of course, I'll be pruning it back a bit because I do want it to eventually be this full, but I got to constrain the growth to get it how I want it to be. But you can see I'm sort of going for a shape like this. And, so we're not going to do a whole lot today. I really want to start with, you know, pruning to that profile that I just showed and, doing some selective branch stuff. I also want to work on the angle back here. But, I think it's coming along really well. And, I'm not going to really hammer it back, but, I just want to get it set for the next stage of growth. And like I said, if I just kind of hold my hands up, I think something along that shape right here. And on this side, just restoring that A shape will suit this composition very, very nicely. So I'll start off by snipping off some long cuttings there. And, I don't have any backups currently of this Lilliput variety, which just has these adorable tiny leaves. I mean, these are practically microscopic. And so I will be trying to propagate some of these. Like I said, I haven't done these yet, but I imagine that it works just as well as any other Portulacaria. I can't really recommend this variety enough. I mean, it's just perfect for bonsai, and because I mean, just look at this tight growth. It's it's pretty impressive, and you just have these really small leaves. They almost look like sarissa leaves or something to me. They're sort of seem to be sharper and more narrow than your typical port, but yet the plants grow pretty quickly. I mean, obviously it takes them longer to get bigger because they're smaller. But you can see even the trunks are getting some nice bark on them, so it's a great variety. And so I'm just working on this main tree in the front. I'm just trying to get the growth that's kind of coming up, and and I always struggle with this because I could just do some light pruning and you kind of maintain that nice jungle look, but then I'm going to be pruning it again in like 4 or 5 days if I do that. So I do tend to cut it back a few steps further than you might if you're going to like put it in a show or something. But I'm not doing that, so I'm just getting it ready for its next level of growth, and I don't want a bunch of new growth to come in and have the tree get weak in spots where I do want it to grow. So I'll be just pruning it back a bit here. So for me personally, what I'm trying to do is, we want to see the trunk, right? That's kind of a key part of bonsai, and so I try to thin things out to sort of accentuate the trunk so I can actually see it on the tree. At least when I'm doing pruning like this, and of course it quickly fills in. But to me, if you're sort of doing that, you're kind of reducing the foliage enough that you can't see the trunk. And of course, a tree in nature, you only see especially a full tree like a maple or something, you're only really seeing the bottom. I don't know, 1/3, maybe 25% of the tree. But I find when you're um, pruning, it's really kind of a good goal to sort of take it back and just really, especially with this variety of plant, just take it back to the point where it's just showing you where you want it to grow, and that seems to work quite well because if you don't cut it back reasonably hard, you wind up with something that looks more like a bush and a green mass. And I mean that's my personal opinion. I know some people like that style of tree, but I sort of want to see lots of layers and lots of detail. And like I said, if I can get it to the point, even on small trees like this, where I can see the trunk and some brown and bark in among those leaves, that's how I like to do it. And I think that one is looking pretty good. I could take a little bit more off, but let me move on. And we'll probably come back to it. Like I said, this tree in the front is a little weak. I mean, it's growing in nice and full, and boy, look at the tiny, tiny leaves in this thing. So I don't want to prune this one back too much because I really want it to have some energy to get those roots down into the ground. Kind of similarly with this one, I think if you look at I mean, it doesn't have a whole lot of soil to work with, and we'll try to fix that here before we're done. And this one is a little beefier. I think it's been growing pretty well. It's found a good place to get nourishment. So we can cut it back a little harder. I mean, obviously you can see it's got much stronger growth than the other two. It's much like the main plant. Um, and, I don't want the foliage kind of touching the rock. I want to sort of create some space around there. I mean, it'll quickly go back there anyhow. But then we can sort of, control the angle of those branches that are coming in. And and I think it'll look quite nice. But yeah, you can see it's grown in very, very densely, just a lot of leaves, and so it could take a little bit of study to figure out what to cut. Um, even it's the standard stuff where you want to take off stuff that's growing straight up or down or crossing. But when it gets this thick, it can be quite uh, challenging to identify that. So it might take a little time. And I like to thin it out a bit as well. I want to have some space in here. Um, so we get airflow and I can see bugs, and I think just a little sparsity um, kind of adds to the look of the tree. Certainly when you're pruning it, right? And yeah, so you can see this one we're kind of exposing more trunk. I think it looks better already. I want to see that little trunk come up, and this one is sort of the left side of the mountain, right? Which is kind of so it's almost like you can think of it as a branch kind of coming down, and so that's kind of my goal with this one, is to provide that left side. So I think that's looking pretty good. Kind of tightened it up a bit, gave it a nice manicured look. It's not so wild looking, and it'll be ready for the next phase of growth, right? And then we'll just keep refining it. I am a little concerned about this tree in the front, which it's kind of weird to have a tree kind of coming right at you, but somehow I think it works with this, so I'm just going to keep going at it, but I would like it to splay a bit to the sides. So we'll just clean up a little bit here. Try not to disturb the dragons. But yeah, I think, this pot to me is really interesting. I'm not a huge pot collector, but when I see something, I don't know, like this that really just piqued my interest, um, I just had to have it. And like I said, I think I mentioned this already. There's an Etsy store, Brightside Bonsai, and he sells these. I also have some videos in my there's like a pot playlist, bonsai pots playlist in my playlist. You can check that out for some other pots he's created. But it's a really cool pot, and so I wish I could get some more of them. Maybe one that's a little bigger, although I do like small trees. But I think this is looking pretty good. I mean, I just wanted to kind of restore some order to it, and I think you can see we're getting a lot more detail and ramification. So I'll just put this back on the shelf and let it grow out more and take good care of it. And I think it'll be ready for the future. There is one thing I almost forgot that I do want to do, and that is, you can see I have it in this. I call it, it's like a mame tray or a growing tray, and that's basically because there's so little root room in this pot that I found, the trees were just a lot happier, uh, growing on top of another medium. So, and some of them have, they have a direct path to the soil. But boy, you can see there's not a lot of room for this tree to grow roots. So I think what I want to do, I'm going to experiment with sort of, kind of mounding up some of this soil, in the growing cavity and kind of all around it, and see if I can get, the roots to sort of more firmly established down there in this medium, and see if that helps the trees, even more. The main tree in the top, I mean, I can't show you now, but I think if you look at the other video, you can see sort of the structure of the pot. Like, it has a pretty good shot kind of straight down, and I put some soil under there when I put this planting here, so that the roots can get down. Now, I think this may help, right? I'm just going to sort of mound it up, and I'll sort of keep the soil pushed, excuse me, up there. And yeah, I think this will help just with some more moisture. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get some roots kind of coming down over the lip of the edge of the pot, like for this one, and get some more contact with the soil. I mean, it's adequate what they're doing now, but I just think like this tree in the front here, there's a hole in the bottom there. Again, you can't see it, but if I put some soil in here and sort of keep that wet so that it'll help the tree be healthier and also kind of anchor it um, into this pot. And I actually think it'll look pretty cool, like if we eventually get some roots coming down there. Of course, it'll make repotting an absolute nightmare, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. I think luckily, even in that case, like these trees are so hardy, root pruning wise, that I'll be able to saw them off and pull it out and kind of regrow them. Or who knows, maybe at that point they'll be overgrowing this particular pot. So now that I've mounded stuff all around, I think I'll put some along the back here too, just to make it look. Actually, I kind of like it. I mean, it looks, if you think about it, the soil would more naturally meet a large structure coming up out of it in a smooth manner like this. So I'm just going to put some of that around here. And so yeah, it's like anything, you sort of keep evolving this and you make smaller and smaller changes, but sometimes they're they're more significant. But yeah, I think this looks good, and I think sort of a good thought for the day is like try some different kinds of pots. I've got things at the Goodwill store that I thought, oh, that'd make an interesting pot, and drilled a hole in it, and some of them are pretty cool. Some of them worked out. I love watching CM Bonsai. I don't know if you've watched that channel. Check it out. It's on YouTube. But he has some super interesting trees over various statues and landscapes with fences and rock walls that he creates. And it's just amazing. So yeah, you can be really, really creative with this stuff in just an endless number of ways. And like I said, CM Bonsai, check it out. He's got some really cool stuff. I love, he has surprised me so many times with some of the stuff I've seen Chris do on that channel. It's really inspiring for sure. So I'm just going to put a little bit on here too. I don't know if I'm going to mound this side up because this one has a pretty good shot at, it probably has roots down there already. But I think that's pretty much a wrap for this one. And I think this has done a great job. This tree is ready to fill out maybe in this profile. And, we'll put it back in the bench and let it grow. And see it again in a few more months, and we'll go from there. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.